Hello, I'm Diane Trees. In the United States, we now have 60% of the country living in a state with access to medical marijuana. With the passage of Amendment 2 in Florida, our state legislature and the Department of Health will now proceed with implementation. Joining us is attorney Wade Vose, who serves as counsel for several cities and local governments. Wade, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Diane.
Can you give us a brief description of what Amendment 2 is, and then why did it pass with such a large margin?
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, Amendment 2 has to do with medical marijuana, in particular expanding access to medical marijuana in the state of Florida. And I think that was probably one of the primary reasons why it passed. A lot of people were persuaded by the ads that they saw for compassionate use for infants with seizures, hundreds of seizures daily, that medical marijuana component may be able to assist with, or an older woman on chemotherapy who may be able to get her appetite back using medical marijuana. A lot of other people, I think, were also persuaded by the potential opportunity that it could be a backdoor opportunity for recreational use, like we've seen in some states. And then I think there was a little bit of an anti-establishment component, like we saw with the presidential election. Yes. Marijuana is still a federally listed Schedule I narcotic, which means that according to the federal government, according to the regulators at that level, there is no medical use for marijuana, and it is highly addictive. That's as opposed even to cocaine. Cocaine's a Schedule II drug. It's also highly addictive, but it has a couple recognized medical uses. So you've got the medical establishment telling folks that there is no medical use for this. And really, I think this might have been a populist reaction like we saw with the presidential election to say, we're going to do what we want and not listen to the experts.
A good backlash then for it. With the new law, what is it that we don't know? What needs to be clarified?
Oh, there is so much to be clarified. You mentioned both the state legislature and the Department of Health. Those are two key players in this, and the legislature's work is about to start in March. In fact, they're doing it now in their committee weeks. They are going to be tasked under this constitutional amendment with implementing the legal structure of how this whole system is going to work. And something that is not specified in this constitutional amendment is, for example, how many dispensaries or facilities where you can purchase medical marijuana are there going to be?
So we have 7 right now.
That's
correct?
Right, because we had the state legislature back in 2014 did implement very small amounts of medical marijuana, again, for one called Charlotte's Web, that is a low THC, that's the euphoric substance in marijuana, low THC variety that can apparently help with some child seizures. Now, even that, they have designated these 7 growers, but that has been tied up in litigation and regulatory fights for the last many years. Only now are they even starting to implement that. So the big question is going to be whether we're going to go with what they kind of refer to as a mega casino model. That's kind of an inside baseball analogy for the idea that there might be only some facilities, 7, 8, 15 facilities in the whole state of Florida where you can go and get medical marijuana, or more of the McDonald's model, medical pot shop on every corner, the type of thing you see in California. And so that is one of the things the legislature is going to be sorting out. There is nothing in the constitutional amendment that mandates it one way or the other. There's even a third option. One legislator is proposing that it all be done by mail and delivery service. So call it the Amazon model, if you will.
How could that work, though, with federal law being?
That's an excellent question. As we discussed, it is marijuana is still a federally controlled substance, and it is illegal, even a felony that you go to federal prison for, to traffic in certain amounts of marijuana. So, and of course, sending marijuana through the mails is against federal law, right? So that is going to be one of the big snags with that model. But one way or the other, whether it's actual mail or it's delivery service, we have the beginnings of that even now. We've dealt with it from the local government perspective, and we know that there is medical marijuana for some of these Charlotte Webb's purposes and so on that are already authorized under the statute being delivered by unmarked cars, just like an Uber or Lyft driving through your neighborhood.
You represent a lot of local governments, municipalities. How much authority do they have now to limit, to restrict, to even ban dispensaries or distributions in their geographic regions?
Well, as a local government attorney, I would say we have complete authority. But the big question is going to be what the legislature is going to do. You see, state law and local law sometimes come into conflict. Now, in Florida, cities and counties have something called home rule. And what that means, cities and counties have the same power, the same legislative power as the Florida legislature, unless that power has been taken away, preempted is the word, by the state. And so the big question in this legislative session for local governments is going to be whether or not the legislature preempts or takes away the ability of your city commission or your county council to be able to regulate where medical marijuana dispensaries go, what sort of safety precautions they have to implement, and things like that. So basically, whether or not they're going to take away the right of your city to make sure there isn't a medical pot shop across the street from your elementary school.
Do you think that a lot of people realize that the referendums or laws being passed may not hold depending on what the state legislature does?
Well, I think that is something that I think a lot of local governments have been doing education on or trying to.
Yeah.
And frankly, folks like myself, local government attorneys, have been first educating our city commissions, letting them know what these moving parts are. And there's a lot of things we can't educate them on. All we can do is let them know what the legislature might do, and then we need to respond nimbly to it.
Do you anticipate, if state governance says this is their jurisdiction, do you anticipate challenges from the local level?
I think anytime you've got a lot of money and you've got substances that some people consider to be very dangerous mixing, and the power of government, there's going to be litigation. We saw it even with the very small amounts with the Charlotte's Web, the challenges to the Department of Health regulations that have gone on for years now. And so I think anybody looking at this with a keen eye would anticipate years of fighting and litigation over this, exactly how it's going to work.
If that happens, then the ramifications for those who are waiting for medical marijuana, it ties everything up, doesn't it?
It does. And I think the message some people are going to start to gather from this is just because Amendment 2 became a part of the Florida Constitution 2 weeks ago, that doesn't mean they can go down to Walgreens and CVS and pick up some medical marijuana for their back pain. It's going to be a long time coming. And it's very possible that that may lead to some disenchantment with this route of dealing with medical marijuana. It may push some people to think it needs to be pushed further.
From what you're saying, that so much needs to be clarified and interpretation is going to be key here. With this amount to be decided, it might take a very long time, and we're talking about 500,000 people potentially who are eligible for medical marijuana under Amendment 2. With the state and local government now, depending on who gets what, how prepared do you think they are to go through the process for handling these people?
Well, local governments, I can tell you, have been trying to get a handle on this, and they've been attacking it different ways. Some of them have been passing outright bans or prohibitions, and that's a simple solution for them. They just are not going to have it here, at least not sold there or produced there. Other folks are putting in moratoriums, saying, time out, stop, let us figure this out. So they're trying to buy a little time. Some have tried to jump out there and regulate right now. So everybody's trying to take a different approach, trying to be proactive in one degree or another. From the state level, I can tell you that the folks up with the state in the Department of Health and so on, from what I understand, have been talking with other states. This is not the first time this happened in the United States. So they have a lot of opportunities to speak with regulators in other states and try to copy some of those best practices. But what we found each time this has been implemented in a large state, a large market, is it goes down differently. And it's usually because it's based on different language in each constitutional amendment.
That's very interesting. I wondered if there were models from other states. Wade, you mentioned previously that one of the reasons this may have passed, and I think a lot of people, now that it has passed, are looking to see, is this a precursor for recreational marijuana passage here in the state of Florida? What are your thoughts?
I think it could end up being a precursor or a platform for that if this isn't handled correctly. And again, it's not necessarily folks out there making the argument, we passed the medical marijuana, now we're going to springboard that into recreational. It could more be the argument that if this is not handled correctly and gets folks access to medical marijuana who need it or feel they need it quickly enough, they may say the only way we can do this is to have complete legalization, to have recreational marijuana, not because it's great to smoke marijuana every day, but because they would believe it would get the bureaucrats, the experts, out of the people's way.
We certainly have a lot to watch with the upcoming legislative session then.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much, Dan.